This one, sort of been touching on it all the way through the slides, but the top bar chart shows the number of credits within each section. If you looked at that, you'd think all I need to concentrate on is the energy section. But when you look at the bottom one where they're weighted, the energy section is the most powerful. But for instance, if you look at the health and well-being, we're up here, it's worth sort of 15% there. But on this one, the health and well-being, there's only, I think it's 13 credits, so it's the actual weighting of that section, you need to bear that in mind all the way through. The bottom one is quite a powerful one, and it's worth sort of stressing. If you look at the transport at the top one seemed like, let's forget about transport, there's hardly any credits, but at the bottom it's more, what was it, the fourth most powerful sectioning. So this is what we ended up with, this is what the certificates look like. We ended up with one BREEAM Outstanding, which is the first that they've done for prisons for anywhere in the world. And then we've got another 9 excellent, and the other 9 excellent had no renewables at all, and it's purely just by good design of the building and seeing all the loopholes and working out where we could. So it's quite a, sort of a powerful thing.
When was that issued? At what point does that become a practical version?
Now that's the design one. So where the 2008 BRE, the BREEAM has just changed. So within the 2008 one you have to do a design one, which is how it used to be, and then that was it. And then they do a post-completion inspection, which gives you a final certificate then. And then if you get outstanding, you have to also do BREEAM in use, which is 3 years later they come back and check that you did everything that you said you were going to do. So it's one thing that's worth bearing in mind, that you have got that BREEAM in use, but what you also have to do, you have to sort of do a report on how you got to it, which goes on the BRE website, which is quite a good sort of promotion for the building and stuff. So it is worth weighing in mind that 3 year later thing that you need to be doing. So you can't say I'm going to do, for instance, you can't say I'm going to use the biodiesel boilers and then as soon as the BRE's gone, switch them over to the gas. You have to do it and prove it and have the bills to support it. What most people are sitting here thinking, what was the cost that we actually spent extra and above? I think that's what drives every project, is you can't get away from it. Running through, the first one, we went for the biodiesel boilers. There was a requirement, because it was a prison building, and if they lose the gas supply, then there's going to be a riot. So it was a requirement that it had to be a dual fuel system anyway. So all that we did, we looked around, and the supplier who gave us the burners, we switched suppliers to one that would take biodiesel, and so effectively it costed us nothing. The cost of the burners were the same, it was just that bit of research into finding somebody who'd let us use biodiesel within the boiler, and the burner would actually take it.
So did the boiler have to be dual fuel anyway, so it had to be gas and diesel, and we got the credit by going to biodiesel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas gas and heating oil is what the last prison that they did, that's what they used there, and we just switched it to biodiesel. There's an increased sort of life cycle cost in that the biodiesel is more expensive than heating oil. We're not going to sort of lie and say it's not, but the way that they looked at it, there's savings in sort of the CRC, and then there's the potential savings in the RHI, and they bought into the idea of, okay, it's worth us spending sort of 72 pence rather than 45 pence a litre on the fuel to have a BREEAM Outstanding. They've seen that as a worthwhile investment to the sort of project. There is scenarios, when we do the feasibility on there is scenarios where you care more about the payback on it, so it would be a different selection, but the renewable selection is always suited around what the scenario is at the time. Another cost, the uplift.
Sorry, just from that, are they running it primarily on gas now?
No,
Biodiesel.
They have to do biodiesel for 3 years, and they have to show the bills to prove it.
And then they're going to swap to gas?
Probably.
They probably
That's
will.
when the next certificate comes out.
Yeah.
It's very cynical.
Go on, Bill. Well, in all honesty, they probably will.
Yeah,
Well,
there you go.
it's set up that they don't, and it can always revert to it. And to switch from biodiesel to gas, they have to clean out the burners and do things like that, so there's sort of an incentive there to drive them not to. I'd like to think they wouldn't, but if the biodiesel costs fly up, then they will. But if the biodiesel costs come down, which would sort of developments in the market and sort of algae and things like that. Hopefully that should be a standard. Other things that sort of put a cost to the to get into the BREEAM Outstanding was the building fabric. We increased the it was Kingspan product actually. We went from a thinner board to a thicker board within the walls, and that to put a relative cost on that, I think it's about £5 a square metre of the wall, which was to get us to the 6 points on the EPC seemed like a worthwhile investment, because that's pretty much all we needed. That and the air permeability and some lighting controls got us there, which is more than worthwhile. The addition of 3 water meters.
Can I just ask on that, and going back onto that one, on this particular instance, was our client the operator, so they could see the benefit of the reduced fuel, so to them it was a longer term issue.
It's a
private capital cost, they had the benefit of the money and the reduced bills as well.
Yeah, it's a privately run prison, so it's they're getting so much capital per prisoner, and then they can spend that money how they want, so they do have that. And that's what I'm sort of saying about each, with the renewable selection, that tends to drive it. Who's picking up the bills, who's paying for what? Is it a capital expenditure driven, or is it to do with the payback over there's a lot of things that go into that. The water meters I sort of touched on before. We ended up in all the other buildings, it was just 1 meter to do domestic hot water, to pick up that clever innovation one which bounced off another one. In this one, because we had 3 chlorifiers, we had to do all 3. So I sort of put a price to that of £1,200. It's probably a little bit cheaper than that, but that was me putting a price to it. Probably the big cost that sort of contributed to it was the compactor baler and the composter was 75 grand, which seems like a lot, but the end client actually requested that they wanted one to put them in on other prisons just off their own back, because it had a payback and it improved the security. If you've got people coming in regularly to take waste away from site, it's not a good thing for a prison. Probably for schools, it's not a good thing. There's a lot of scenarios where you can look at it, and if you can make a saving on it and a payback, and the client's happy with that investment, it's worth doing it and pushing it. And what we ended up doing, we made the compactor baler slightly bigger so that we could satisfy the BREEAM credits. So it's always making sure of that. Don't be afraid to jump on the back of something that somebody else is doing and tailor it to get your BREEAM credits. Touched on it before, adding a public transport information point or a cheap laptop in the main building is worth doing. What's worth investing in is getting the designers to buy into it. Without the designers' blood, sweat and tears, you're not going to get anything. If people just think that the BREEAM's a sideline, that's like I said at the start, if you just look at it at the beginning and look at it at the end, you're not going to get nowhere. If everyone buys into it, you can, without spending very much money on it and staying within the budget, we've managed to sort of achieve the BREEAM Outstanding on this. Bit of cheese on there. The world's first BREEAM Outstanding, priceless. So that's what we're sort of saying, that all that investment, all that time, it's worth doing, because having something like that, or getting the first, I think there's an office already being done. There's 5 buildings that are recognised so far by the BRA, so it's worth that. Even if you're the second one, it's still a good selling point, because if you're doing offices, I'm sure they're going to rent out a lot quicker than one that's a BREEAM Excellent. It's making that distinguishing point between projects